The 8th Indigenous Economic Development Forum, held recently in Darwin, proved to be an outstanding success. This year's theme, Developing the North, saw a host of successful Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander business owners and operators sharing their insights and business experience.
I'm not a local expert, not from the Northern Territory, so I'm not here to represent myself in any of that capacity. I'm just here to talk a bit of a yarn about our business and how we've kind of structured ourselves in the Pilbara, and hopefully there's, some of that story will be of interest to what's happening here. In the same way, I've been hearing some stories already from today that I'm going to take back to my mob and say, hey, this is what they're doing in the Northern Territory. We should look at some of this as well. Beyond the stats, we can all get up and reel up stats about our business and what we do, and throw some figures out. But I guess the real story of the North West Alliance is it's helped people take care of their family, and I actually think that's the hidden story of Aboriginal business. It doesn't show up on a balance sheet, doesn't show up on a profit and loss statement, but that's actually what Aboriginal business is about, and that's actually the real impact that Aboriginal enterprise has. It saves lives and it changes lives. The other thing we wanted to do was have a model that could bring the community and our extended family and our communities that were into enterprise and wanting to kind of have opportunity along on the journey as well, because the privilege and success someone like me can enjoy now is because of those generations of Aboriginal people all around the country who, fought for access to universities, fought for civil rights, fought for land rights, and so someone of my generation, have much more privilege, and so I have an obligation as well to, help and bring everyone on the journey, as just like everyone else's old people have helped, be responsible for my success as well. In the Pilbara in particular, a lot of the joint ventures that emerged, they came out of the civils and construction industry, and so what they tended to look like was you got Big Brother, he's got 50 trucks, he's the big non-Aboriginal partner, Little Brother's got 1 truck, and they form a joint venture and they win a contract. At the end of the contract, Big Brother's still got 50 trucks because he didn't really need to build his capability, and Little Brother's now got 5 trucks and he's made a little bit of money. And then they kind of split up, and then they'll go off and do their business, and they might come back for some other bids, or sometimes those partnerships last a bit longer. And that's what kind of a typical civils and construction joint venture looked like. We wanted to do something a bit different. Veolia didn't have a waste management footprint in the region, and so what we decided to do was create a standalone vehicle where any waste management opportunities would run through a fully incorporated company which would be separate from both Veolia and our country. Joint ventures are just one form of capability partnering. What it means is that there's an opportunity that you want to access and you don't have all the skills or the capital or the resource to go after it yourself, so you've got to find someone to partner with. So capability partnering is probably a better way to talk about it, and I think that the future of that is bigger Aboriginal businesses partnering with smaller Aboriginal businesses, and it's already happening. We've heard some examples today of that happening, and I actually think that will be the growing trend over the next 5 or 10 years. We'll see a lot more of as particularly smaller traditional owner businesses on their country, and then maybe bigger national or state-based Aboriginal businesses that come into their land, finding better ways to work with them to develop them and empower their growth.
There's a shortage in Aboriginal tourism, employment and hospitality across the Territory, and we had such a great conversation yesterday afternoon, and there's so many people out there that can actually work together and make this happen, and obviously there'll be a lot of mentoring and support so that we can build confidence in having more Aboriginal faces in that tourism and hospitality space. From our point of view, from the Advisory Council's point of view, we've been doing this for the last 2.5 years, and we've been fortunate enough to be extended for another 12 months with the new government. And we want to make a difference and have some impact in what we've been, feeding back through to government. And we're building into the Aboriginal tourism strategy for the Northern Territory tourism, moving forward, 2020 to possibly 2030. And we're hoping, what the Advisory Council will have, we hope to feed that back through to government to make a difference, because there's never been the opportunity before to actually have Aboriginal operators having that opportunity to give advice back to government on what's working, what's not working, how can we do things better.
Our future is related to how we trade with our neighbours and trade with the rest of the world, and how we make those relationships strong and efficient and effective, and how the north of Australia, which is here, is so important to our whole country. But there's not many of us, so we've got to work hard and we've got to position ourselves hard. So finishing up now, the important thing for us is to have a clear line of sight to our customers. And people were talking about this earlier. Alpa are doing that. They know who their customer is and they're trying to provide the things their customer needs. If you're a tourism business, you need to know what your customer that might come from Japan needs or China needs. You have to understand them. And earlier we heard about understanding. Adrian talked about you must understand yourself and you must understand your client. You must understand who you're dealing with. That's part of our challenge, and that's a part of our challenge here in Northern Australia. We have to have good policy, strategic policy for the world and our relationships. We have to have good trade relations as well. We have to be good with our land. We have to combine people, the environment and economics really carefully and positively to protect what we have, which is really special. We have to do the right research to underpin what we do. And we have to have investment. We have to have money come into from within Australia or from outside to build our industries and to build our businesses. So that's it. I had to rattle through that fairly quickly, but that's it. That's some of the most important things we think, and it's part of the north of Australia being very much a critical part of the country. And we've got a massive role to play. We have huge potential and we need to develop it in the right way that people want to do.
The 8th Indigenous Economic Development Forum.
I'd like to pose our first question to Nigel Brown. How do Indigenous business and landowners position themselves to receive support to develop and innovate in the Northern Territory?
Some of the examples that places like Canada have demonstrated over the last 30 years is that it's all good and well to be in business. It's a much better position to actually be controlling the dollars that flow through and to those businesses. I'd like to think that we as Aboriginal business people and Torres Strait business people across the country get to a stage where we reach a critical mass, where we're in every part of the decision-making process within government and then within the private sector, as other groups around Australia have, the Greek community, the Italian community, the Chinese. We're just playing catch-up, but we can learn from what those communities have achieved to push for what's ours.
It's a very exciting time to be working with the Commonwealth Government on developing the North because, as Jason mentioned, 31 of the 51 commitments in the Developing the North paper has already been finalised or they're being delivered. So just to give you a flavour of what those sorts of things are, some of them are quite exciting, particularly for Darwin. So for instance, we have a cooperative research centre specifically for funding research to do with the North, so for instance in tropical medicine, but also to do with Indigenous-led development. And just last week we announced that almost $17 million worth of projects have been announced through the CRC, and 3 of those are in the NT. So that's an exciting development that's just occurred.
You want to build a big mine, you need to have money to do it. You want to build a tourism business, you need money to do it. Some of that money might be local, some of it might be other parts of Australia from banks and things, some of it might be from overseas. And sometimes we have to get investment from outside of the Northern Territory. We've got to have money. These things don't just vaporise and appear suddenly. So part of the role is to try and get both the trade that we can sell things, but we also need the investment so the money comes in. So some of that's international, and making those connections is an important part of it.
We have to make sure, with all these initiatives and offers of support and help for our Aboriginal community groups and businesses, that we do have not only the commitment but the resources to actually match up what we want and where we want to go with it, with the whole business sector. And this is why, importantly, it's good to have that understanding from the grassroots, exactly what the people at the grassroots level want.
Thank you so much, guys, those people that are just tuned in. Thank you so much for having us. And it was nice to be in your energy, so this is our last song. It's Ornament. lights wanna see you. Turn on the lights wanna do ya. Turn on the lights wanna love you. Turn on the lights. Turn on the lights wanna touch ya. Turn on the lights wanna love ya. Turn on the lights wanna hold you. Turn on the lights. Look pretty, keep it sharp, stay on the shelf, don't you move. Look pretty, keep it sharp, stay on the shelf, don't you move. Look pretty, keep it sharp, stay on the shelf, don't you move. Look pretty, keep it sharp, stay on the shelf, don't you move. I'm an and I'm in the man. I'm an and I'm in the man. Turn on the lights, wanna see you. Turn on the lights, wanna touch ya. Turn on the lights, wanna taste you. Turn on the lights. The baby shall stay on the shelf, don't you move. Look pretty, keep it sharp, stay on the shelf, don't you move. Look pretty, keep it sharp, stay on the shelf, don't you move. Thank you.
The 8th Indigenous Economic Development Forum.
So without further ado, let's get stuck into some discussions around the opportunities and in the energy and mineral supply services sector.
The Kulkula Mining Training Centre is owned by Gumach, us, and was funded by Rio Tinto, Alcan, Northern Territory Government and the Commonwealth Government. The aim is to deliver training to our Indigenous students that are enrolled through the Bachelor College to get them into the training that can be useful in their careers, whichever career they want to use. Keeping in mind that the students themselves, their first language is Yolngu, and the second language is English. And we have Yolngu mentors in there that can assist the trainees.
We started 8 years ago where we wanted to build up the capacity of the community and the trust of the community. We built a school, we built a training centre there, a small one. We built a shop, a community store if you like. We built a nursery. We then went on to building a garage. We then went on to timber harvesting, and then we went on to carpentry. And then we went on to timber fabrication, such as trusses and floorboards. After which we swung around and we further developed our cattle farm. Then we built an abattoir, and then we built a butcher shop, and we started building up the capacity level of the community and the trust of the community rather than just leaping onto the mine. From there we started investigating our own bauxite reserves, and when I say bauxite reserves, this is not on the Rio Tinto reserve, this is our own reserves. So we then went through the regulatory procedure. We had to get licenses, we had to get agreements, we had to learn about bauxite, about exploration. But we took the whole community through that rather than just one or two of us.
In terms of what the government are doing, I guess the department that I represent looks after mines and energy, but it also looks after primary industry and fisheries. So there are a suite of things that we think that we can bring. We're also looking at value-add activities, and the timber operation that the Gumach are doing is a really good example for that. So while the Gumatj are looking at harvesting timber in native forests, there's also opportunities, I believe, for land that has been strip mined that can be rehabilitated back to possible commercial operations in forestry, and the work that the Gumatj have done with their forestry and their timber, it's a real indication that this is real, is valuable, and has opportunity ahead of it.
Thank you, Alistair. Derek, I'll throw to you.
I want to premise my discussion around what the mining industry is currently doing for Indigenous Australians, and there's no bones about it. They are the biggest employer of Aboriginal people in Australia. They are the biggest economic driver for Aboriginal people. They're the ones that are pulling us out of the toilet at the moment, and we can't deny that that's going on, and we need to be part of it. There's no point saying, yep, let it all happen. We've got to ensure that we're part of the economic development that can happen with these industries. If we let it go, we lose the opportunity of pulling our people out of the problems that we're currently facing. The big part about the mining industry is that they're employing a lot of Indigenous people, but also a lot of Indigenous businesses are being engaged. And as we all know, and the research has shown, Indigenous businesses are the ones with the biggest numbers of Indigenous people, the highest retention rates. So for the industry to continue to do that, that's something we push for and make sure it happens.
Great. Thank you, Derek. Lauren, I'll throw to you. Joining us from Alice Springs. Lauren Ganley is the CEO of Desert Knowledge Australia. Lauren, can you please bring us up to date with DKA and the Solar Centre?
Thanks, Rob. Our role is probably best described as connecting the best and the brightest in academia, policy, business and community to advance economic development in regional and remote Australia. We've also got a role to play in the renewable market, and that's about connecting people to information to make informed choices about reliable and efficient renewable energy. On the precinct, we've got a solar centre. It is little known outside of Alice, really. However, it has a global reputation. It's a critical test bed for the latest technologies. It's a great story for the Northern Territory. It's great for Alice. There are 39 installations in the solar centre from 13 countries. The next 5 years, we're going to see enormous challenges in the renewable sector because it's customer sentiment and society, not politics, that is demanding delivery of an affordable and reliable green energy. And just finally, most of you may know that the Northern Territory Government has committed to a 50% renewable target by 2030. Part of that is to create a Centre of Excellence in Alice Springs, of which DKA will be delivering with partners.
The 8th Indigenous Economic Development Forum, highlighting the vital role Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander businesses play in the economic growth of the Northern Territory.